You know, folks, there are many Georgia podcasts, and quite frankly, most of them are total losers. Thankfully, we have Troup and Smooch on the Dawgs Show, two American heroes. Let's make college football podcasts great again. Go Dogs!
Troup, Smooch, and the Dawgs Show. Another new episode is coming on tonight. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show.
You're listening to the one and only Dawgs Show.
That's right.
Your hosts, Troup Brenson and Smooch Moncrief.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
Mark. Welcome, dog fans, to the one and only Dawgs Show with Troup and Smooch and special guest, Coach Hayes.
How we doing, gentlemen? It's good to see you again.
He was setting me up for your bumper, and I missed it already.
I figured so, but that's okay.
Tell.
Coach
Hayes,
Coach
Hayes!
But a big week, Smooch and Coach Hayes, as we've been telling you folks who don't follow football or follow the offseason quite as sharply and closely as some of us do, that the recruiting was going to pick up but by the end of June, but sometime in June. All these visits and these guys trying to get ready for their senior season, and man, things are really starting to get going.
Absolutely, Troup Brenson. And, you know, every year there's hand-wringing. Georgia doesn't have the commits that people want, even though the term commit is slowly losing cachet and gravitas going forward. But there's just it's that Georgia hand-wringing. And, I mean, we might as well patent it. No one can do it like we can as Georgia fans. And then every year about the same time, there's a run. And now you've got impartial observers predicting that Georgia's about to go on a run, Coach.
Yes. You know, honestly, everybody wants to hit on the NIL and when we're doing this and when the portal opens and we need only one window or two. I say we change commitment times, man. I say we change the early commitment to like right now in July and let the last date be at the December date or something like that, so we can have more things to talk about to kind of put as a foundation through the summer to get some of these kids locked in so they're not even fooling with what they ain't got to worry about it through their senior year. These 2026 commits, they're locked in, committed, taken care of, national letter of intent signed, and then you might have some of those that, you know, trickle in December and let it work that way. Coming first, patent pending, you know, if he does it that way. But, you know, that would help some of these senior kids, because if we're not, the paradigm has shifted already with what we've seen in NIL. But when I look at it from a commitment standpoint, the one thing that a lot of people are losing sight with is that recruitment has become, it seems unstable. It's a little uneasy from fans' perspective watching these kids go through their recruitment stage because of the monies that are being moved around. So why not change those dates as well to solidify? So you've got a 17-year-old kid who's about to play his senior year and he's locked in with his school and he ain't got anything to worry about for the next 6 months prior to going to Christmas, especially if he's coming in as a mid-year kid, which a lot of them are doing now. A lot of them are graduating high school early. So anyhow, I went off on a tangent there, but if that's something that we could see happen here in the next few years, who knows? That could also help maybe solidify what we're wanting to talk about through the summer as well, because recruiting is getting hot.
Yeah,
it is so hot. And Coach Smart has even mentioned the dates in terms of when this transfer portal and commitment, all that would help out immensely as from a coaching staff point of view. But I guess the news of the day and the news of this past week, well, Khamari Brooks, an edge, 6'3", 230 right now from North Dakota, committed to the Dogs yesterday. We really wanted him. It was an Alabama-Georgia battle. But there's so much meat on the bone this week with these dates, and we're going to talk about these people announcing this week and next week, and in July as well. But On Three's Hayes Fawcett just put out a post on Twitter, and sometimes he's a little coy, and I will put this up right here for you. He lets you know that something's coming. Yeah, something's coming, and he'll maybe just show you a bulldog sometimes, just the UGA. and let you know that something's about to happen. He does this for other teams as well. But he just put this out there, and he said that Georgia is about to be on a heater.
Yeah.
A heater, which means good things coming in terms of recruiting for the Dawgs, Smooch.
Yeah. You gotta respect it. He's one of the few credible people out there in this industry, right? And with solid connections, he's got relationships with a lot of these players and especially their families, and rarely, if ever, is wrong. So it's encouraging. And like I say, at some point, we as fans are going to have to stop doubting the Kirby recruiting machine every single season. He always seems to be a step or two ahead with whatever may be thrown at him, and nothing catches him by surprise, Coach.
No. And, last year, I think we didn't get this sort of recruiting momentum until after the dead period. Mm-hmm. It was more in mid-July after the 4th. I like to see that we're already beginning, and that's the reason why I'm thinking to expedite this process. We're beginning to see more kids kind of get into their commitment time sooner. With people like, well, I'm going to go ahead and say it because I've worked with his name so many times, but Nnamdi Oboko's younger brother, Ekene, actually committed this past week as well. We got the Corey Howard kid from Valdosta today. We have an avalanche of kids right now that are beginning to fall in order. And I want to tell the fans that are out there listening to this podcast, and obviously being a part of these guys for so long now, I know that Troup and Smooch both understand this process, is that when one kid decommits, very rarely is there not some kind of positive reciprocation on the other side that we know as a staff, they know as a staff, we know as a fan, if you've done enough recruiting watching, is that typically when a kid decommits, like we saw in one of them this past week, we'll go into depth that further, that there's something going to be good, positive on the other side of that. Someone else is being talked to, or either there's a silent commit way. And there's a reason why that decommit's taking place, especially from Georgia, because that has been a rarity, been a unicorn really for kids to really just completely say, you know what, I don't think Georgia is the place I want to be. I'm decommitting, and there really not be something on the other side of that. So, be faithful with what Coach Smart and staff are doing, because everything they've got is a well-oiled machine. And so far, what you're going to see this week, if you were feeling a little uneasy, you're going to be feeling a lot better by the end of this week.
Exactly right. Georgia recruiting, if you don't know, folks, is a well-oiled machine. They have finished in the past 8 years, I think 3 times number 1, 3 times number 2, and 2 times number 3. So, and that's the point I was trying to get across to some of our, I guess, on not rivals in terms of football, but rivals in terms of social media, going back and forth. This is what real recruiting looks like. Yeah, this is what it looks like, and this is how you stack it together, just like the Dog Show, a well-oiled machine. And please check us out on YouTube. Smooch has done a lot of work on YouTube to get that page going. We are flying right now on YouTube with all the visuals and the numbers and the videos.
Closing in.
I'm going to check it out. I mean, the audio is great. Yeah. And we do pride ourselves with good audio. But YouTube, the video stuff is so good. So check us out there, and you can see some of the other things we're going to flash on the screen and show you videos and all that stuff too. Yeah. But yeah, Georgia, nobody can really knock Georgia in terms of their recruiting. If you look at their history, and if you look right now, and it's a good time. I have a good time on social media, Smooch and Coach, at some of these the Johnny come latelys, I would say. Maybe like a USC or a Miami, some of those guys who are just feeling themselves right now, and they're looking at themselves in June and feeling like, we've arrived. I'm like, okay, well,
ready.
Georgia's been plenty of time. I mean, Georgia fans, like Smooch said, are famous about wringing their hands. And I've seen Georgia in June, July, August wringing their hands about, our recruiting is lagging right now. But I just told you when the dust settles, where Georgia usually ends up is in that top 3 every year, because Georgia doesn't leave any stones unturned. They do a fabulous job. You are not employed on staff by Kirby Smart if you can't get it done. And that's just the way it goes, because he is that leader that's going to make sure that happens. And he's if he doesn't have to take the reins in a recruiting cycle or in terms of a particular player, then he's got the right guys on that. But the dates are before us. And I failed to mention, and Coach, that was an excellent ad there Ogboko, who is the younger brother of the other Ogboko on the defensive line.
Namde and Ekene. That's the two
They are
names.
both. I mean, I got high expectations for Namde as well, because he got some playing time last year as a true freshman.
Yes, he did.
And he's highly regarded. And his brother, that's a need for Georgia. Georgia need some high level players with some ceilings on the offensive line. Because if there's any knock, and there's plenty, I guess, if any, about Stacey Searles, is sometimes there's recruiting. You feel like maybe not in terms of high level. I think he kind of relies on some of those mid players that are rated. And so you got to hit on some of those guys and develop them. Yeah. But Boko is a guy I'm excited to see about. And there's other players that are coming right or making their decisions this week. We got today. Yesterday was Khamari Brooks. Today it was
Corey Howard.
Corey Howard, who
Valdosta.
He's the edge. Is a defensive lineman from Valdosta.
Yeah, and
he's gonna open some eyes, I think, this season. People are gonna know more about him. That's just kind of the way it works. Me and Smooch were talking off air about how it used to be. We used to always talk about the Bama bump, in recruiting, because it could be a guy who's 3-star, 4-star, but as soon as Bama, 10 years ago, really, offered them, then they would start to rise.
Yeah, you're gonna see that with Corey.
And you see that with Georgia a lot too. The people say in Georgia bump now. It's because these guys do it better than anybody. They do it better than the recruiting sites. They do it better than those guys. They evaluate really well. Yeah. And once they offer and the eyeballs get on these fellas and they start to get some measurements going, you say, okay, I understand. Mm-hmm. And they start to rise in the rankings if that matters to you, because staffers will tell you that these rankings that are sent out to the public don't matter to them. It may tip them off sometimes, maybe not. But if it matters to you, those numbers come up because of that, because teams like Georgia and Alabama are better than everybody else at identifying these players and evaluating them. And so Corey Howard is one of the latest that Georgia is enamored with, really likes him, offered him, he accepted. And then tomorrow, another name you want to know is Jay Lamar. Yeah. He's a running back. And I think that I don't remember where he's from. Is he from Georgia or South Florida? Maybe
Jay Lamar's from South Georgia. He's from Colquitt County.
Okay. So he's a Colquitt County running back. I usually feel good about those guys, but I think he's kind of like it's either between us and Georgia and Miami. You think right there, and then the player that I'm curious about that I've watched film on, we all have, is Craig Dandridge. He commits. He's going to make his commitment on Thursday. And if you were worried about Spafford, we hadn't talked about him yet, from the West Coast decommitting and flipping to Miami. Dandridge is the guy that I think Georgia's had circled all along as a high riser, and a guy that his playmaking ability is on a par with just what this team needs.
Yeah. I think when you look at Dandridge, and I didn't mean to skip Corey, I had a little bit about him, but when you look at Dandridge, the thing that jumps off about me is I remember watching, let's say, a recruit that doesn't play against top-level competition, like a Nitro Tuggle. Nitro Tuggle's high school game film, he was all over the place, and he looked so much faster than everybody because he was, but he wasn't playing the level of competition. All right, when you watch Dandridge average 25 yards per carry, absolutely shining. He looks dangerous, and he's got the dog. You don't see dog in players at the wide receiver position a lot, but you do with Dandridge, Coach.
Yes, you do. Going back to Valdosta High School, though, obviously a rich tradition in football in the state of Georgia, and somebody else that we don't even think about right now that's actually on Georgia's team at this point in time, last year recruit, is Todd Robinson, who just came in. He was not a mid-year, but that's another steal that they got from Valdosta, who is a highly effective athlete, very fast athlete that we'll probably see come up the ranks through special teams and probably end up seeing him get some reps as time goes on defense. He was a quarterback at Valdosta, but again, the Corey Howard parallel there is, to me, the evaluations these guys have, because they've been watching, obviously, Valdosta play, and I know Coach Smart had Valdosta State University roots. That's where I actually went and did some undergrad work myself, so I'm familiar with that area too. But looking at Craig Dandridge, the one thing, when you look at Vance Spafford, the first thing you can't forget is Vance Spafford was supposed to be a slot. And typically in the slots, you want to have guys that are twitchy. You want guys what I always call the fast twitch, being able to move and cut in space, i.e. Ladd McConkey. Obviously, what we want to see out of Zachariah Branch this year. With Vance Spafford, I don't think we had really those specs. I know Brady Marchese fits that role a little bit better. He's going to have to improve. But then you add a Craig Dandridge in there as well. And I think Craig, watching him on film, the one thing that's impressive about me is he's got so much junior highlight film.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times junior year, even if you show out, you may not have necessarily all that film. I've seen it plenty of times with guys that they're considered 4-star athletes, but they're getting more of those stars from their workouts during, you know, the extra things they're doing, like the rivals, the Elite 11s and those kind of things versus it just being on tape. Craig Dandridge is a human highlight film.
Exactly.
Everything that I see on film from him, he shows you everything you want to see. A very polished route tree, a very aggressive route runner, a very fast kid with strong hands. Really works well to maneuver to the football and find open spaces in zone. He's a very high IQ kid is what it seems like to me as well. And all he can do is improve his stock through his senior year. I think we actually could possibly get him, coming in as a 4-star. But I think if he has a senior year like he had a junior year, we could be seeing a 5-star by his name. He is 100%. A heavy upgrade along with Marchese to fit that role that Spafford, relinquished going to Miami. And we shouldn't fret about that because honestly, I think Spafford had a lot to work on. Very stiff hips. Really all he could run was the slot fade route or the go route. They never showed anything from his route tree from his junior film. He didn't really have a lot of good things to show on film, honestly. And, he's going to have to really improve this year. Is he fast? Yes, but he's not football fast to me. So that's just my own personal opinion. Another thing that I want to add too is a lot of people don't realize is we talk about the Prothro kid from Bowden.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize, he's another big one. I think his his commitment date's on July the 12th. He's from Bowden, Georgia, Carrollton area. And he actually, to me, on film, looks like an ex-receiver. He looks like Noah Thomas right now.
Yeah, 6'6", 210. Yeah,
210. I mean, he fits the profile of an ex-receiver. It doesn't really show very much from the Y position, which is what we're recruiting him for. But, you bring in the Keys kid and you've got him as that other Y that more than likely we're going to be looking to convert to X. Our wide receiver core looks really good compared to considering what we brought in last year as well. So there's a lot of possible potentials in all the recruiting that we're seeing this week. And I think we're just adding the right pieces to the puzzle for every recruit that we get, just like the compliment today to Khamari Brooks is, the kid from the Corey Howard kid from Valdosta with that, both being kind of edge players.
Corey Howard, I want to say one little thing about Corey because I skipped him. I had this in my notes. I didn't want to leave it out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Coach Smart and his staff have the ability to look at a player and know that they can fill out. Now, this kid looks skinny at 6'6", 250. To me, he looks thin, like svelte. Mm-hmm. Look at a picture of Nolan Smith coming in his freshman year and look at what he looked like when he graduated. They know the frame, how much weight it can take, how much muscle and development it can take. I love the upside of Corey Howard. If you're already athletic at 6'6", 250, and then you're going to work with Kirby for 4 years, I like your chances a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Coach was talking about, Dandridge, Milton, from Milton, of course, Cambridge High. And then Lincoln Keys is another tight end prospect. Where is Lincoln Keys from? It looks like he's from Michigan. Saline, Michigan, 6'6", 235. So, Georgia just stacks those guys up. And I heard mentioned earlier, I think today on social media, talking about you see some of the Brock Bowers effect, and some of these tight ends who could be a wide receiver. Even I thought about Ethan Barbour. In this last class, he's a guy that could play anywhere. He is that kind of talented dude with those kind of hands and route running and size. So we're looking forward to that. But moving forward in terms of what we're looking at this week, another name that we weren't as familiar with because I really thought he was going to Texas, and he still may. And that's Chace Calicut, a defensive back, and Texas is recruiting him more as a safety, and Georgia's kind of getting his attention by saying you might can play some cornerback here, and we're looking at you that. But Chace Calicut is one of those other studs. And Coach mentioned, and he's going to talk about it right now, that another high level, probably a 5-star by the time it's done, Jordan Smith, a defensive back. If you compare these two guys together, well, you're going to have something going forward.
You will. When I look at them both, whether they use him as a corner or as a safety, honestly, in high school football, you can play either or. A safety to me tends to be more of an aggressive downhill player because you need safeties in run support to certain coverages that you're in. Cover 4, there's certain buzzes with cover 3 where you've got a safety that's a run support guy. But what I noticed from him, first off, his frame. I think he's more 6'4" than he is what they say 6'3".
He's a tall kid.
He is a tall kid.
Long.
But not only that, with hips and Smooch, he's so long so that even when he doesn't look like he's running, like if you watch his film, there's a couple of times where receivers make moves on him, but he's able to pivot in the ground and he catches up so well. Because I'm going to say this, as a defensive back coach for many years, a lot of times you're going to get beating covers, but luckily, if you take the inside away and they get you on the outside cut, you chase the hip back down and be able to, recover and get your hand up through the, the V point when they're trying to catch the football. He does that better than any kid I've ever seen as a junior in high school doing that.
High praise.
Along with being a 6'4" kid. When you look at Jordan Smith at safety, and I know right now one of the things that we're trying to profile for him is that we want him as a cornerback versus a safety position. So if that's the case, I don't have a problem with that. But I'm telling you, with the defensive back crew, because a lot of people are saying, why so many safeties? Because we're not done yet. The boogeyman, Tyreek Green, is another one that we're really working after. He could be a possible commit as well for us too. When you look at all of these guys that he's getting today, in today's time, because so many teams run spread out of gun, you need 3 safeties on the field at the same time, or in dime packages, 3 cornerbacks and 3 safeties. So it just really depends on what you're running. But, I see the need for all of these guys, and they understand that as well. I mean, and we've proven it on the field. It's not like we're sitting in the box with a 4-3 with just 4 DBs on the field. We sit in a constant 5 and 6 DB scheme with what we do, trying to cover the run and the pass because of today's schemes. But, if we can, the thing that I see is I think we offered him in April. He came for his official visit. And ever since that time, there are little whispers that we're beginning to hear from a lot of people that he could be now front running towards Georgia. And that would be an awesome pickup, considering the fact that he's been sort of leaning heavily towards Texas, since that is where he's from. And, for us to pick him up and bring him out of Texas to Georgia, I tell you what, our defensive backfield for many years to come is going to be one of the most solid secondaries you'll ever see.
Absolutely. When you talk about Calicut, his hips, they remind me, they always want to make an NFL comp. And they talk about large cornerbacks as A.J. Terrell, who plays in Atlanta, right? Well, he's 6'1.5" on a good day. He may be 6'2". This kid's already longer. And if you watch, you can watch just some 1v1 drills online right now of him where he looks beat and sticks up an arm and darn near comes down with an interception because the window to fit a ball over the top of him is exponentially smaller than it is for any other guy out there. Yeah, I agree with you, Coach.
Without a doubt. Mm-hmm.
One of the other players that Georgia does well with defense. We're talking about linebackers or defensive backs right now, and man, these guys are beating on the door to get in to play for the Georgia defensive coaching staff. And unfortunately, those defensive linemen don't always grow on trees that, we covet. You got to stack them up and train them up a lot of times. But the next player, I think, that is also committing on the 27th is an offensive lineman that Georgia really needs, and that's Malachi Lee. And he's from Honolulu, or he's from Hawaii. He's visited a couple times, and we mentioned him on last show. He brought his whole family, and it's it's one of those 50-50 type of things. I don't know if I feel good about him coming, but I know Georgia really would like to have Malachi. Coach, what do you know about this cat?
Malachi Lee, I'll go off, believe it or not, there's one person that I really trust in the recruiting world, and that's Jeff Sintel. I like him from Dog Nation. And, the last words that Jeff Sintel left about Malachi Lee was the fact that after he took his official visit, his entire family came back for an unofficial visit to the University of Georgia. And right after their visit with them at University of Georgia, he set his commitment date. Now, currently, he's up in Michigan for an official visit, I think either last weekend or this weekend. But I know with us pursuing out heavily, and I know now that, believe it or not, I think it's Michigan, Texas, and us is his three choices left. And I just see us really having a good chance with him. And honestly, because of the fit, it's not like we're overloading that position. I think that's a position of need and something that's encouraging to me. But, Mr. Jeff Sintel thought it was a good idea that he looks to be very promising to be a commit for the 2026 class. And I kind of have to agree with him, especially it just seems to me that if they set the commitment date right after the unofficial with Georgia, I think maybe there was just some essentials talked about at that point in time just to make sure they had all their ducks in a row. Maybe up at Michigan just to see what Michigan can offer. And, which is fine. And then, finally set that date and do the deed. So I kind of see it about 85-15, 85 good to the 15. I'm a little bit hesitant just because why not? I mean, in this time and age, but still though, feel pretty good about his chances of being a dog.
Well, anything can happen there, but the logistics of having a family coming unofficial from Hawaii is a lot different than them coming from Michigan or Texas. That's a lot. That is a lot to work out. So it does carry with it more weight than a normal. I want my family to come meet everybody. That's a big deal. And I just want to see 36-inch arms, 85 plus wingspan, 6'6", 330 right now, something like that. Yeah,
I think Stacey Searles would definitely appreciate that in the offensive line room.
Stacey Searles, 1 day of peace.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Him and Bobo are always looking for a day of peace in terms of people ridicule or questioning their decisions. Yeah. A couple other players I don't have dates for, but I'm curious about. One is another running back, Derek Cooper. And the other is everybody talks about Tyler Atkinson. He's all world. He's probably the number one of the top recruits in the country.
Cooper kid is July the 12th as well.
July the 12th. We'll know about Derek Cooper then. He's got a good relationship with Georgia as well. And then, because Cooper just sounds like a Georgia player. I mean, Georgia's had a couple of Coopers, especially at running back. It was a Michael Cooper. Was it Michael Cooper back in the early 90s or late 80s?
Wow.
No, late 90s, early 2000s, I think. Michael Cooper.
Ooh, deep cut, Troup Brinson. Yeah.
There you go. You guys would know. You get your real fans to know. But the other than Tyler Atkinson, who Georgia has a great shot at, is Nick Abrams. And I think Georgia's got a great shot to sign this guy. He's 6 foot, 220. He's got an 83-inch wingspan, and he loves him some Georgia. And he's a borderline. He might be a borderline 5-star for us over too.
Yes, and I want to talk. That's what I was actually wanting to hit on. I didn't know if you were going to go the linebacker route. I think everybody's just really wanting to put all the eggs in the basket with Tyler Atkinson. And honestly, if we were to get him, I'm going to be happy. There's no doubt we would be happy if Tyler Atkinson is a dog. But I'm going to tell you, if Tyler decides to go to Texas or go to Ohio State, wherever it may be, getting Nick Abrams, and now since Shadarius Toodle has also decommitted from Auburn.
I was just about to bring that up, yeah.
Shadarius and both Nick would be a great complement package if Tyler decides not. Now, Grant, would I love to have all three of them? Sure. Yeah, but I think the real world would be Shadarius Toodle and Nick Abrams. I want to tell you, there's something about what I've noticed out of those two guys. If you want to think, I want everybody to put in your mind Chris Cole. If you've seen Chris Cole play, previous year, 4-star, became a 5-star through his senior year, and obviously had some playing time for Georgia. Nick Abrams and Shadarius Toodle look very much a lot like him. And it's a different style linebacker. It's not the short, squat linebackers that you see that look like C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson. Nothing against them. They're just shorter. But I've noticed that Nick Abrams both and Shadarius Toodle fit more of a framework of what Chris Cole looks like. A very long, stretchy body, very long arms, taller kid that can move. That's the difference. It's not just the fact that they have range because they've got a long body, but they can move in space. And I think that's something you'll notice like from Chris Cole and pass coverages and things like that. Like
he was our best coverage linebacker for a long period of time.
Well, you look at like Chace Calicut, it's the same principle. When you've got those long arms and rangy body, just that long stretchier looking body, 6'2", 6'3" as an inside linebacker. I mean, that just makes it hell on wheels when you got to cover a running back out of the backfield, or you're covering number 3 in the empty, whatever it may be. And you've got to throw over those long arms that are running you down. Not only you're not running away from these guys, they're staying with you on the hip, and they've got those long arms and long legs to carry them. So I think don't get down about the Tyler Atkinson news if he tends to start trending away from Georgia, because that only means that Nick Abrams probably going to be a dog. And I like what you say there, Troup, that if we have Nick and we have Shadarius, that is a nice duo to complement what we've had for over the last few years of linebackers inside. The only thing it probably doesn't do is I think it wrecks a trend of getting a 5-star linebacker. But who knows? One of those two could be a 5-star before they end up in the red and black.
Good stuff. That was good stuff,
That
Coach.
was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and you pretty much segued what I want to talk about next is I think we always kind of balance what a coaching staff wants and what a program needs, and or actually what a fan base wants. We want 5 stars. We want the highest rated guys, and sometimes we don't even care if they transfer a year or two later, because we had the bragging rights. Mm-hmm. And we can talk down to these other schools who want to kind of puff their chests out and think they're on our level, and we're like, no, we've been doing it for years. Georgia, like I said, they're in top 3 every year. What they do this year or not, I don't know. It's a new landscape, but it's about needs and wants. And I think Georgia tries to address, as a coaching staff, address their needs first, because from their standpoint, they're going to see, they know where the deficiencies are and maybe where they have some gaps in terms of the classes. And sometimes it always matches up. And they also know, okay, well, we didn't really hit it big this year on the offensive line, but next year, the state of Georgia is loaded at offensive tackle. And so we're not gonna go nuts and spend a lot of money that we don't have to right now. They know those things and that we aren't privy to. So it's needs and wants. So let's talk about what our needs and wants are. And I'm gonna ask Smooch first. I'm gonna ask you about what your wants are remaining still in this class. Smooch, name a couple of positions or a couple of players that it don't even matter. You just want them.
Well, you couldn't have set it up any better. Tyler Atkinson is my want. I mean, that's what you want. You want the kid, you run him out there for 3 plays and the crowd's going to go nuts, just when he takes the field. You want that. You want that splash player, and you want the best linebacker in the country to say, I want to go to the best linebacker coaching school in the country. You want that. Do we need the best linebacker in the country right out of high school right now to have the best linebackers in the country? No, we already do. So you can't really call that a need. And it's just like you said, there's a plan B and C in place in case that doesn't happen. That's probably the want. Yeah.
And Smooch, the plan B, like I just mentioned, might not even be for this cycle.
Right.
Maybe with an eye on, okay, I know who's available next cycle, and we're good right now because we just signed this in the past cycle. And so that plays a part as well when you're talking about roster management, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we've made a splash pretty much everywhere, with the exception of, I would love to see another O-line splash or a running back splash. You're going to talk about needs. In terms of a recruiting class, I'm completely comfortable with everything is, but running back, I think that's a need in this class. I'd like to see a quality can come in and play meaningful minutes running back in this class.
Coach, what do you think about that needs versus wants this class?
You can't go along to me from if you're solidifying your secondary and your linebacker core. Since you've already mentioned Atkinson, I'm going to talk about one on both sides. First off, my need and want, Josh Crawford's got to show up in the running back room. Yes. Savion Hyder is who I want. And I know that more than likely he's probably going to end up taking an enormous NIL deal from Michigan is what it sounds like. But Savion Hyder is someone that I would really love to see in our running back room, honestly, because we only took one last year. And, you got to look at your depth from the 3 we took to the prior year. And so, like you said, though, Troup, we could be setting ourselves up for next year if Savion doesn't come. But, that still doesn't mean that we don't get the kid from Colquitt County either. The other kid that I really would love to see, and I did a breakdown on him about 2 weeks ago, I really hope that they try their best to get him, and that's add him to the defensive tackle groups, kind of like where Mikael Williams played that 5 technique weak side. And that's A.J. London from Clark Central.
Yes.
That is a kid that I absolutely, watching on film across the board, and I've watched a lot of film. I've watched probably 25, 30 kids over the last 2.5 months since school's been kind of out and I've been having some time to work on it. He impresses me the most defensively on the line of scrimmage. As far as just raw talent, I'm not sitting there going, he's a project. He's already sculpted very well. You can tell he's been coached very well. Highly athletic, got a motor, will get after your ass. And I absolutely love the way he plays. He's one of those kids where it's seriously like, you get that electronic piece of equipment and it's just plug and play and it works so well. You don't have to do all this necessary instruction reading and all that kind of stuff. To me, he fits that profile just the same way. I think Khamari Brooks, the guy that just committed previous from North Oconee, is the exact same way. High IQ kid that I think will be ready and an Insta-star pretty quickly just because of his football IQ. And Coach Smart has shown in previous years, if you understand the game, if you understand the football X's and O's, and your athletic ability parallels that, you're going to play, i.e. KJ Bolden immediately coming in and being, someone that could be depended on right out of the gate. So that's the two. I have to say Savion Hyder, running back. I think I can't recall where he is from. I want to say he's from Virginia, but I think I may be getting him mixed up with somebody else. But anyhow, and then AJ Lonan from Clark Central. Those are the two wants that I really want bad.
And just to let folks know who don't recall who, I was pulling up Hyder real quick, but Savion.
Hyder's from Virginia. Yeah.
So
I was right.
Yeah, you nailed it. London, is it AJ London? Is that what they're calling him?
Yeah, Anthony AJ is his nickname.
Because his dad played for Georgia.
His dad
was from Screven County, and so that's a Swainsboro area team. We played those in all Screven County and all sports.
He's the legacy guy,
the legacy player. So yeah, I like that. And you guys both hit it. And I wasn't really thinking this before we talked about it. Is Georgia really does need to hit on running back? If they don't, then you're looking at transfer portal, because you got to continually restock that position group, because there's so many injuries. We've seen it. Georgia has experienced the injury and the depth issues at running back. So you got to keep restocking that. If you don't hit through recruiting, then you're going to have to bring some of those guys. And it's maybe what they do anyway, because you're looking, unless somebody pops up I don't know about, you're looking at Lamar, Derek Cooper, and Xavier Hyder. I don't know anybody else that they're looking at in this recruiting cycle. And
Crowell kid is the other one.
Yeah, he's unlikely. He's probably an Alabama guy, I think.
He's Alabama.
And so, who was the recruit? What did they bring in last year, Smooch? Do you remember?
Cedar Grove, the little cannonball.
Walker. Bo Walker. He was kind of underrated.
Yeah.
But you need more than that. They're going to have more than that. And we talk about a lot of these skill players are wants, because Georgia's going to populate their team with players who are going to come up through the system and going to put in the work. But the needs a lot of times is that line of scrimmage, and what separates the championship teams from the wannabes a lot of times is that line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And so Georgia needs to stock up with high quality players on that line of scrimmage. And if it's not this year, and I think Searles did a good job last year. We got some good players, and you're going to start to see some of those guys get on the field more and more. But if it might be next year before some of those really, really coveted highly rated players on the line of scrimmage are more available from the state of Georgia.
I wanted to add something to that too, Troop, is that defensive line recruits this year are down. I don't know if you know that or not. They're not on the higher end like we had last year. We were able to take care of business last year on the higher end. This year they're down. Offensive line, this is the reason why, to me, the last two recruiting cycles with Stacy Searles, he's done, to me, a great job. I think he's going to be probably not as I don't say not as pleased, but he's probably not going to see the higher end, sort of the bells and whistles that we want to see this year. But I think that kind of puts a caveat to what you said a while ago about, we're setting up for next year's offensive line cycle because it's going to be heavily much improved defensive line as well next year. So, that may be something that we're having to look at going forward, because just because we didn't get everything we wanted this year, more than likely that's setting up for the next year in general for that recruiting class for the 2027 group.
Yeah. And as we wrap this up, I want to talk about, because this is what we do as the Dog Show, we're going to talk about some other teams just briefly. And the two teams that continue to puff their chests out that have absolutely nothing they do influences really Georgia or stop Georgia from meeting their goals, which is kind of funny because they're prevalent on social media right now, and that's USC and Miami. Miami feels like
they are something.
Miami feels like that since they won the Cantwell offensive tackle recruitment, and now they flipped Spafford, which it's two totally different recruits.
No, it's not. That's a monster.
Long enough, they're going to say that they took Carson Beck from us too. Some way. I know that's going to be construed.
It's a monster flip. I saw that on social media today. A player that 80% of Georgia fans don't even know his name is a monster flip. Vance Spafford has flipped to Miami. I will tell you this: the way Miami does business and plays football and does football, if a player is willing to take the bag and go to Miami with little or no relation or building of a relationship over time, then they're not a dog anyway. We can look at it as a litmus test if you want to. If that's your thing and you want to go to Miami, Athens isn't the place for you in the first place. So head on over and have a great time. But the monster, I couldn't get over. I'll put that graphic up. The monster flip of the monster of a 5'9", 168-pound wide receiver.
We called it out, and I called it out, and I wasn't questioned by Miami fans about Spafford because he's West Coast, and they didn't really think they were getting him either because he canceled his visit because he was sick, I think. And it was more looking at Oregon or some of his West Coast teams that he might flip to. But Georgia, the word was that Georgia had already been okay with losing him because they weren't going to push too far over their skis for him. It was like, okay, if he wants to come to Georgia, we will take you, dude. You're good. We'll find a place for you. We'll work. We think you're a great athlete, but you're not that fellow that we're going to overspend for or continue to get in some kind of bidding war. We're not. That's not going to happen with this player. And we're called out by, of course, our buddy Zulu Trojan, who thought that he was just laughing. He was just laughing about it, that we were coping about losing. We're going to lose Spafford. I said, I called this out before he left. I was still thinking he might be a part of Georgia. Yeah. And he's like, no, Georgia's getting – it's based on all these other teams. When you're at the top, teams are going to take fans are going to take a lot of enjoyment out of these type things.
It really is a compliment. That's exactly right. I mean, and the fact that you feel a victory out of wrestling such a player away from Georgia, that's a victory you go to social media with. We consider victory what happens on the football field, not what happens on verbal commitments.
Yes, because those two teams have won how many playoff games in the playoff era?
Oh, let me get my calculator out.
It's amazing to think that Miami, you take them all the way back post Y2K. I think they had that national championship with the Larry Coker group. But since they've joined the ACC, I don't think they've gotten one ACC championship since they've joined. So, to me, my thought process for all these guys that want to talk the smack about the commitments, hey, I'm happy for you. You've got a guy that could possibly help your football team. Now let's put your faith in your coaching staff to take care of those Cantwells, to take care of those Spaffords, and let's develop them. And let's see what they do on the field and win ball games for you. Then you can start talking. But post that, don't say anything other than we're glad, we're blessed, it's great, but quit making it such a big deal that you're shoving Kirby in a locker for a kid that we really didn't necessarily have the best interest in all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, we would have loved to have Cantwell. Cantwell was a guy, and Bowman that signed with, or committing to USC, committed to USC. Those are two players that Georgia would love to have, especially, of course. Cantwell was a guy that I was okay. He was closer to a need than I want. Bowman was again another one, but so give him credit for that. But when you haven't won anything, you celebrate these victories in June. We've been there. Georgia's been there, just searching for some kind of relevancy.
Yeah,
because you don't win championships, so you got to find something there to defeat it.
I remember when USC was celebrating Zachariah Branch too, and he's not there anymore.
Or Deuce Robinson,
yeah,
who is now in Miami, I think.
Yeah,
right.
And that's something they've got to understand too. And I know you guys have mentioned this on your show more than once, is that it's not only about just those one-time hits, it's the consistency. You said it earlier, Troup, in the show. I mean, you think about it over the last at least 5 to 6 years. I mean, our recruiting classes haven't left the top 5. In fact, the top 3. So it's different when you are trying to reload, and there's a lot of intangibles for us this year. But it just seems to me you've got those fair weather fans that try to rib punch you for one kid or two kids, because you're right, the Cantwell kid would have been awesome being in the red and black. But what I want to see now is that if he's going to Miami for all that money you spent on him, God, man, what a waste if you don't go down there and develop that kid into a day one draft prospect for the NFL, man. That's doing that kid a disservice. So you can sit there and do all the promises you want to, but if you got him, by God, use him and do the right way with him, utilize him, and all that other stuff can kind of fade away to me.
And Smooch, plus he's got to play an ACC schedule.
Exactly.
I mean, he doesn't even get to go to the big school. He doesn't get to play in Texas or against Alabama or.
He doesn't even get to play in front of fans. I mean, the atmosphere is.
And so he sacrificed that for. I mean, anyway.
Maybe Carson will leave him a Lamborghini when he departs.
That's fine. That's the only player that they have on their team that Georgia is coveting, or they wish they had. I think, and we're going to go back and forth with USC throughout the year because they are a team that is trying to come up, and so they're going to use every minor victory as some kind of a affirmation. They are there despite losing
daily affirmation. 5
games and 14 in 3 years.
14 in
think
3
about
years.
that.
Yeah,
6 and 5 and 3. I think that's right. And 8 the year before then. So let's go 22 in 4 years. They are not a team that has done it on the field. I do think that USC and Zulu, I know you listen to this, and USC fans, I do think that this is their best recruiting class in years. And I actually, at this point, think they're going to hold on because they've added some high-level players. They're going to hold on to a top 5 class this year. And they have not had that over the past couple of years. And the best classes they had was 15th, 18th, right in there. And that feels good when you're trying to just be relevant. It doesn't make a difference when you're really trying to win championships or win something of significance. And that's what we keep trying to tell you. We told Tennessee that for years. You don't skip steps. You got to add recruiting. You got to stack recruiting classes, top recruiting classes on top of each other, or you won't have a shot when it comes to these elimination games.
Yeah,
and Miami too. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the run of USC this offseason has a lot of similarities with that run that Texas A&M went on a few years when they put together the best recruiting class in the history of college football, and then watched it deteriorate around them because they couldn't lead, develop, and put a winning product out on the field.
Or they could also say this before you go to the coach there, is that, and this is what they want to hear, is what was it? There was a year, I think it was 2018, when Kirby Smart put together that first huge recruiting class, and they held on to these guys. And so this could be if USC continues to do this, but you can't do it just 1 year.
Well, it ain't going to be Lincoln Riley. I can guarantee you that.
Well, that's what they're thinking.
Well, I know there's a lot of skepticism about Mario Cristobal, but there's one thing you can say. I think he is a good recruiter. That's something I was wanting to add to what you were saying about USC. I think with Vance Spafford decommitting and going to them, that put them in the top 10. I think they're at 8 right now, if I'm not mistaken. So you saying USC probably staying in the top 5. I think Miami stays in the top 10 with their recruiting class as well. So that's where it's kind of the put up or shut up mentality that I kind of see. And I'm sort of the no nonsense, get off my lawn and shut the hell up. It's like one of those things, you come out there and you tell me, hey, this is what we're going to do and this is what we're going to do. Like, Smooch said a while ago, you got to get out on the field consistently year in and year out and prove it. And then I'll start kind of giving some belief and trust into what you're talking about. But until then, it's just a fart in the wind as far as I'm concerned, because, to me, that consistency is going to build. But,
coach.
I really, I'm sorry. But, it's one of those things I feel like it's okay, great. You got a top 10 class. let's reproduce that again next year. And let's have a good season this year where you're, not talking about the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which I love. But,
win a Pop-Tart Bowl.
Exactly. Having a Pac-12 or an ACC championship under your belt and making the playoffs. Let's talk about that. And then you'll start getting some respect from me.
Next stop, the Pop-Tart Bowl. They need shirts. They need shirts.
That's hilarious. And you fans who have been here longer than just a few years, you can remember that even though Mark Richt was the start, I think, of Georgia's moving back to, it was Donnan and then Richt elevated us again and brought some stability to the program. But a lot of times in that Richt phase, Georgia would recruit well, but it would be maybe 9th or 10th or 8th right in there. And you said, okay, we're a top 10 team. But you had sometimes 3-4 SEC teams still recruiting better than you did. So you were still, the pecking order, you were still, at a disadvantage in terms of that, in terms of what everybody, the talent level, but you still felt better about where you were. And the difference between Kirby Smart is he puts top three teams. His recruiting is anybody who comes in and questions Coach Smart and how he recruits and tries to knock on him, we just laugh at that because there's nobody that does it better than him. Nobody who cares more about it. He's been saying it for years, and he puts everything towards that. Even above what he says, it's not always about coaching, and we know it is, but it's got to get those players in there first. Yeah. And finish sometimes in the top 15, top 10 is not always is not enough to win a championship. If you want to win a championship, that's what we're talking about because we're Georgia Bulldogs. If you just want to be relevant, and that's a whole nother conversation. I think other teams are doing that. Coach, I want to thank you so much for jumping in on it with us.
My pleasure, gentlemen.
Tonight, give us a little idea what you got going on, where to find you.
At Coach Chace Huddle, all of my social media platforms. I'm breaking down recruits right now, one after the other, it seems like, and it's going to get a lot heavier as the weeks progress, as they're moving through dead week time. High school football is going pretty hard right now. I've actually been going out and actually visiting in the local area of Northwest Georgia because we've got a lot of talent up in this area, been able to try to go out to camps and stuff. And I ain't going to lie, guys, it's giving me the juice to want to be back out there a little bit.
I don't know how you do it.
I've got a buddy of mine who's a head coach now, no more than 30 minutes away from me, and my best man in my wedding, they work together now, head coach and OC.
You'll be there soon. You'll be there soon. Yeah.
I went out there to do a camp the other day, and he said, dude, you want to be a wide receiver coach? I said, man, in the wing tee, are you kidding me? I said, a wide receiver coach, that's like a warm pitcher of spit. That's just not something good. But anyhow, he was kidding. But needless to say, it's always a pleasure to be on with you guys. But for those of you who are interested, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, I'm on Facebook now, believe it or not, as well. Woo! So I've got that too already loaded at Coach Chace Huddle if you want to check out any of my stuff.
Nice. Wait, I got it.
Coach Hayes, Coach Hayes.
It's always a pleasure, gentlemen. Appreciate you having me.
What was the social media? I'm drawing a blank. Before Facebook, what was it called?
MySpace.
Yeah. You got anything on MySpace, Coach?
I tell you what, it's funny that I was off for Facebook as long as I was, but I realized that's a great live platform. If you ever want to go live, Facebook's the place to go.
I need to get on that
thinking
Facebook.
About getting out on the field again until he walks out, and it's a heat index like right now 105, 107.
It's so funny that you talk about that because now turf fields, obviously I've been out there plenty of times. The heat doesn't bother me. I actually was one of those coaches that wore the long sleeves that made me sweat. I loved it because it would just make me sweat like crazy. I didn't mind the heat. I'm one of those. I was crazy. I can't tell you how many times I almost passed out trying to get my defense to the ball and realize I've lost oxygen trying to coach them up as I'm running in that 95-degree weather. But I didn't mind the long days, and the summer days were always some of the best times.
I went through 3 sets of clothing yesterday, and that was like about 2 o'clock.
Oh my gosh!
By doing stuff out here around the house, and
we tried that. We tried that Saturday, and Amy and my wife and I ended up arguing about a shrub, and we're like, you know what? We probably need to go inside because we're not making any sense.
I just said a little prayer over my whatever the little thing outside's called, the furnace piece that's out there. I said a little prayer over it the other day to not, to make sure it was doing okay, and if it needed anything.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Take us home, Troup.
Thank you so much, Coach, for Smooch Moncrief and Coach Hayes. This is Troup Brinson saying so long. We'll see you soon.
This is the Dog Show with Troup and Smooch.
Dog show. It's the dog show. It's the dog show. It's the dog show.
Tasty.
That was
Taste
tasty.
that.
Delicious.
I bet you don't have to cut that and edit that whatsoever. So good.